watching Fish on Friday. I'm Lucian Leone. And my guests today for this segment of Fish on Friday are Pete and Ellen Campbell. And the Campbells are the owners of Campbell Press Repair, which is a local company here in the Lansing area. The Campbells just went to the ARC conference, which is over in London. And so if you two could just give us a brief summary of what ARC is all about.
Yeah, the ARC is the Alliance for Responsible Citizenship. And it's an initiative that was started by Jordan Peterson, which I'm sure. Also Philippa Stroud, who is a member of the
Member of Parliament.
And so two of them sort of spearheaded it. And so this is the second time we've attended it, but we went.
They have speakers on education, government. Speaker Mike Johnson, everybody videoed in his presentation. Nigel Farage from the UK was one of the speakers. Kimi Babelich. She was also one of the speakers. So you got government in there. You have energy, a lot of talks on energy.
Yeah, Bjorn.
Bjorn Longren.
Longren, yeah.
And then also a little bit of industry and definitely education.
Big time.
We're all covered. So again, a good citizen is involved in all those aspects of
So
their
that
lives.
is the underlying idea, is this idea of responsible citizenship.
Right.
In essence, they're helping to define what it means to be a responsible citizen.
Well, and reclaiming what they say is, recapturing our inheritance, reclaiming our inheritance from what we look at Western civilization. It's founded on the Judeo-Christian ethos, and so it's not a religious movement, but it draws people of like mind, and so it is family-centered. Freedom of speech, constitutional, pretty much run by the Brits and the UK and the United States.
Yeah, 4,500 people attended. 1,000 were from the UK, 1,000 from the US. 1,000 were younger people. They didn't give an age, but they classified as younger than the rest from various parts of the world.
And so what were some of the big themes that they were trying to talk about with some of the speakers who were there?
Well, a lot of them would start a little bit of history and how we got to where we are. So Alexander Solzhenitsyn's son, Alexander who wrote the Gulag Arpeggio and other things, his son was one of the speakers.
He was a concert pianist.
Yeah.
So he
and
also played.
Yeah, they had music
amazing, yeah.
interlude in there. And so he was talking about, the democracy and from the Renaissance era to today, how things have kind of morphed and changed, and talked about how we've gotten away from the basics. And he said it's still way better than what's going on in Russia and socialism and communism and all of that, but we've drifted. And that was a constant theme, that we've drifted. And he said, really, the first step is getting back to the Lord and praying, and then building from there. And pretty much that was the theme. And Bishop Barron was there last year, but there weren't any religious speakers this year, but everybody touched on it. And so if you're talking, government, it's going back to serving others first and taking personal responsibility and not, depending on the government, depending on handouts and things like that. They had school teachers. I can't remember her name, but she spoke at the last time, Kathleen, and she's known as the toughest
The toughest teacher
in the UK.
Right.
And she's got a public school that she's principal of, that has set records from, I think, 2014 she opened it, and but top school in the nation, academics, and it's discipline, self-responsibility, and putting others first. And it's not a religious school, but faith-based.
Yeah.
And so she talks about, it's how my grandma raised her children. You know, we need to step back to those eras, and those things worked. So that's, you see that theme, kind of how everybody concluded. You know, get back to the basics, and what can you do in your neck of the woods? So these are a lot of people that have big influence over big groups in government and in energy and business. Anderson, a tech investor, you know, spoke. Last year, the guy that started Whole Foods spoke, and, you know, and talked about, you know, hey, why was his company for 20 years one of the top 100 places to work, you know, and it again focus on the people and focus on doing what's right and a moral driven agenda. So that really was kind of where people ended up, and then now take that back home and do something with it in your neighborhood and with the people that you interact with every day.
Well, and one thing that was emphasized even more, I guess, effectively this year than it was the first year that we went, was a display of beautiful artwork and an emphasis on music. So they're woven into the structure of, and this is like watching back to back to back TED Talks. You know what I'm saying? I mean, you're like, gird your loins, because this is going to be, and so you really have to be attentive, and you want to be there, because it's, you could say, like, just a bunch of talking heads. It's not. It's profound, and they're on it. You know, these are people who are trained, and they know their subject matters quite deeply, and they speak emphatically with great knowledge. And so it's helpful, because you're getting, it's like a day full of a variety of experts. But the music, the artwork, so they had displays. They had basically had sort of a temporary gallery that was put into the main hall that you could enjoy that as well. The rescuing, this will be some familiar to you and to people listening, the good, the true, and the beautiful. And so rescuing the inherited culture, the inheritance that we have of the Western civilization, had so much to do with literature, poetry, music, art, the sciences, you know, everything that you in governance, but in such a way that it was bringing us back to our best selves, our highest selves. And so, you know, I'd say that it's a kick to go to this thing, because no matter where you're from, no matter what age you are, there's this sense of respect for others, respect for yourself. There's a kind of gentle crowd. I mean, these aren't rebel rousers, you know, but there's deadly serious.
Yeah.
You know?
And a lot of time in between the talks. The talks are mostly about 15 minutes, and they'd do a group, and then they'd have a break, and then great time to mix and mingle with people, mix and mingle with the speakers out there. And we went with a professor from Franciscan University, and then another good friend of ours from Steubenville, a business entrepreneur. And, you know, we were all over talking to all different people, and then, you know, at the end of the day, we'd have dinner and talk about who we met, who we talked to, and the interesting things that we learned. And
don't you think they did a great job about facilitating conversations? Because on the breaks, they really made a point of, they gave like areas that you could go if you wanted to keep the topic going.
Yeah.
And that was an improvement from, they really are mindful about how can we get people to connect. And they have, you know, they utilize the technology to help connect people in a way that seems pretty healthy, so that you can have conversations, you can connect with people that you've met. And they really, like you said, they want you to take it back into your own area, which really spoke volumes to us, because that's what we're trying to do with our business and in our community.
yeah, and a lot more this time on AI. You know, that's kind of jumped up from even a year ago.
Yeah.
True.
And
I would love for you to chat about that, because I watched several of the videos from the conference, and that was a theme. Like Jonathan Peugeot, he was hammered on that, and as did some of the other speakers I listened to. So what was their main message about AI?
Again, you know, who is your God? Who do you follow? Who leads you? and is it the material things? Is it things of this world? And just like, the phone, it can draw you in and you become dependent on it, and then that's your go-to. And same thing with AI. We were just talking the other day on that. You get one source and you become dependent on it, then you stop thinking yourself,
Yeah.
you stop researching, you stop questioning, you stop doing the work yourself, and then you become dependent on that and not use it as a tool, but you wrap your identity in it. And so now that brings up anxiety. So if you only have one source for your information, you got to go to that source for everything. You get really nervous and unsure of your future, and you have fear and anxiety because you've turned it over to this device or to the government or something that you don't have control over. And so you're saying, watch out.
Yeah.
Step back. Be careful, have a plan, understand what you're doing, and have self-discipline.
Yeah, I thought one of the effective speakers was Arthur Brooks.
Yeah.
And he was quite succinct in his he takes it from the scientific point of view. So he's not just, he's a Catholic.
And he's a professor at Harvard
Yeah,
who teaches on happiness.
In the business
and
school.
in the business school.
So
Yeah.
go figure.
And I did watch his talk.
What'd
and
you think?
That was outstanding.
Wasn't it crazy? And you're like, it's so commonsensical, but he says, the left side of your brain is going to solve tasks and problems. And if you sit your brain on that side of it, that's what your interaction with computer is going to be. Your right side is the big questions that you can't answer, but you're going to muse on those. You're going to contemplate those, and those are the ones of like, why do I exist, or how do I, And so he threw down the gauntlet at the end of it.
He had 2 questions that he asked his students, and
Yes.
I'm looking for my notes on
Yeah.
that. It is,
do
why
you
are you
exist?
here?
Yeah, why are you here?
And I think
And
the other one was, what would
what
you
would you
die
die
for?
for? What
would you die
Yes.
for?
Yep.
That's like amazing. And him telling a story about his son.
Yep.
Being able to, and honestly, those types of questions aren't being asked enough. So I'm sure a lot of people do this. AI for health situation. What should I eat? How should I exercise? What supplements should I take? It's not a far-fetched notion that we have made gods out of these phones, because we're going to it with that type of childlike trust of, just tell me what to do.
Yeah.
And yet we think it ridiculous to say, well, take that to God. Well, God, what would God know? But human data, we're all in, And even if you've ever done a type of a search of chat, it's my brother on a first name basis. He goes, I just talk to chat, like I think it's a pal, right? But it's weird.
Yeah.
It does. It becomes a friend. It becomes a mentor. But at the very end, it always has this disclaimer. This is, a computer generated gizmo. Like, it's not going to have all the answers. It's like smoking. You smoke, you could get cancer. It's like, you use AI, it's not always going to be right.
Right.
Do not use this as diagnosing a problem. Interesting. So it isn't infallible. It isn't the go-to. I thought that was really one of the highlights. Jonathan
Peugeot, yeah.
was very good.
and his,
Those were the 2 that
Yeah.
I
They were
watched, and I
standouts,
just
right?
thought, wow, these are
Yeah.
talk. So to those of us listening, watching, if you go to YouTube and you just put our conference 2026 Alliance for Responsible Citizenship, the 2 talks I would recommend would be Jonathan Peugeot's and Arthur Brooks.
Yep.
And they both talk about how dangerous AI is for families and for how much it's it can easily destroy our ability to kind of critically think, especially when kids get dependent on it.
Totally.
And I love, and maybe you could just share briefly the story of Arthur Brooks' son, which I thought was fascinating. Here's this Harvard professor whose one son, he's married to a woman from Barcelona, and I read about this. He met her at some point, and he actually then quit his job and moved to Barcelona because he wanted to woo her. And he was like
didn't hear this.
there for 2 years, and
Wow.
she agreed to be his wife. And now they've got 3 kids. But the story that was so fascinating was his son, after he graduated from high school, he said, take a gap year. And his son ended up going out to, I think, Iowa and working on a farm for like 12 hours a day. And after that, he joined the Marines and became like a sniper, this
yeah.
real dangerous work. And then he's kind of gone on, he's gotten married, and he's living a great life.
So one of the speakers said this first generation where the IQ is lower than the previous generation.
How's
Yeah.
that for you?
And so here we got all this technology and all this at our fingertips, and it's dumbed us down.
Right. I just would say, watch some of those videos, and
Definitely.
it's something you definitely want to look into for yourself and for your family, because it is so convenient and makes things so easy. It's often easy to overlook how potentially dangerous it can be.
Well, and
Yeah.
if you thought that, we've heard one more talking head about, this type of thing. The fact that this is an international movement,
Yeah.
the fact that boys and girls all over the world are being annihilated by this in terms of their education. We are not the only ones. I mean, we're experiencing, and the stats on our education across our country, the report card that came out on it, it's dismal.
Yeah.
Anyway, hers is, if you haven't listened to that one, because she puts it right at the feet of the parents.
Yeah.
Don't look around like this happened out of like, I don't know how this happened. You're bringing it in there.
Yeah.
Like you have to get control of yourself, because these students, you're bringing this in, and then you look around and say, why is this happening? We were gonna talk about skilled trades, and how one of the reasons why we went is how can we learn about what's happening globally and how it affects us personally, with our own children, but also with our business, because our business relies on masters, skilled trades, craftsmen. And so that was definitely part of, we're seeing a resurgence or a new type of industry 2.0 in the United States, and very much on AI, but you're never going to get rid of the human element, and we wouldn't want to. You don't
Yeah.
want to. You want people to produce things, to make things, to be part of it. So we learned a lot, and we learned who the players were in that. And we've actually, Pete, maybe you could speak about some of that. We've worked with some of the people that are on the cutting edge of the new industry, the new manufacturing.
So, yeah, our friend from Steubenville, the business entrepreneur, he's got a tablet that for schools,
Was it software for the tablet? Right?
and software for a tablet with no internet connection. So, like Ellen's mentioned before, she looked at something from a Big Ten college, about their computers and their, how everybody's got a laptop, and they mistakenly took a picture from the rear of the classroom to see all the computers, and if you look at all the computers, nobody's
Nobody's on the class. They're on.
paying attention. They're all
Right.
kinds of
shopping,
websites.
they're
On
watching.
social media doing
Yeah.
something,
So,
right?
yes.
Sure.
So you just, shot yourself in the foot with that.
Yep.
So he developed a tablet that, the software that has no internet connection. You can write on it, you can draw on it. Your teacher can send you an assignment, you can type on it and turn the assignment in. So it's ductile, you're learning to write. And so you've got that feel of paper,
It's called bookish.
yeah, so there's no apps or anything on it, so it's just a solid learning tool. So it's really a neat application. You had a lot of people interested in that
Well,
while
because
he was there.
we're realizing that, so when parents say, well, my child only gets a half hour screen time when they get home from school today, that's plus the 8 hours they've been on it.
Right.
And if they don't think that their kids, particularly their young ones, aren't on it that much, they're not visiting their kids' classrooms. And now people are trying to push those it's a Google operated, the classroom has become a playing field for, to make more money. Okay, so they want to push it down as far as they possibly can. So that 1-to-1 ratio of computers for kindergartner. So your kindergartner could conceivably be on a screen time situation. Just forget the content even just for a second and realize they're trained their eyes on this 4 to 8 hours. It depends on the, and if you said, well, it's part of their day, 2 hours is too much.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter. You don't need to. And then, of course, teachers pulling down videos. So it's just a constant stream. They get home, they're agitated, but they're also addicted. it's just, again, so education was a big part of it. If people really care about, like, how can it's too overwhelming, I can't deal with it, start with this. You're getting some experts that are really giving you some very good insight.
And part of education, too, a good emphasis on history and how that's been lacking. And so there's a lot, we just, Speaker Johnson today talked about the history of John Quincy Adams.
Right.
And, how he was president and then became a congressman. The only guy
To do that.
be a president, become then he was a congressman for like 18 years until he passed away. And his big push was anti-slavery,
Wanted to abolish slavery.
And so, I should know that. I mean,
Yeah.
as a U.S. kid growing up, that is very unique and very admirable and interesting and,
And
never heard
significant
that.
to who we are as a country, but
Yeah.
yet,
Truly.
yes,
Yeah.
I never knew that.
Yeah.
Hillsdale College just put out a fabulous movie,
Revolutionary America.
Revolutionary America, just great history. I mean, George Washington,
Yeah.
Yeah.
unbelievable hero. I mean, his dedication to making our country happen is just phenomenal. So they did touch on that too, and it's across the world. The British turn their noses against their history. They hear a couple of cultural things that, they did this and that was bad and all that, so they just like, no, we're a terrible country. And, they just give up on all the great, rich
Yeah.
history that they have and don't appreciate what has happened before them to make their country as great as it is and to give them, the leisure that they have for the battles that the people before them won. So that's another big thing is, they're focusing on the history as part of education and glad to see places like Hillsdale bringing that to life. And they plan to make more movies on history, and they did an excellent job with that one that just came out. And then a lot of it was just what is human, Anytime you can sit down and chat with somebody else. We have coffee after Mass with you guys, and that hour and a half of coffee, breakfast, and chatting. That's a very human, wonderful thing that we look forward to every week, and getting people involved and pay attention to how you spend your time. Are you interacting with somebody? You may think some amusement, entertainment is better, but one-on-one, just a conversation, just walking or just being with somebody is better than trying to turn your mind off and just be entertained. So they were talking a lot about that, getting involved in groups and things around sports, activities, volunteering, really human aspect of your life.
Yeah, building community, real community, not virtual community.
Right.
There is such a need for that.
Well, there's one other thing about the AI that I think is an important thing. So, for your listeners, again, it's a conservative group. Okay, it's not like it's a Republican versus Democrat, because there's different bodies of governance all over the world, but a conservation type of mentality of keeping what's good, but also taking in. So it was undeniable that AI has its place, right? But sometimes if you're on the right or the left of the side of an issue, we can also go like, well, our team would be better on how to place AI. And there were a couple moments, and I'm just being candid, that I thought it's like, just because you're conservative doesn't mean that you had the answer on how that's best to be used.
Yeah.
And here's the example he gave, and I thought that was shocking to me. He said, well, look at AI, what it can do for you. Let's say you go into the doctors, you get diagnosed with something, it's, and so AI makes it possible so that you can get your scan or whatever you need, and get your answer within seconds. So now I can move all the way to the cure. And I went like, but now you've divorced yourself from having to meet your maker. Now you're not taking this to the Lord at all. You're saying, I'm using it properly because see, I'm a conservative person. This is how we use it, and we're gonna make medical things really great. You've basically cut out God, and again, and you've cut out your doctor. You've cut out people that you can have these human conversations with.
Right.
Well, they're not gonna know the best. It's like maybe it would be good for you to wait for 24 hours.
Yeah.
Maybe you need to wrestle with what's happening. Maybe there are other things in your life that you need to come to terms with besides this diagnosis or along with this diagnosis. But I thought, that was really interesting too. So I don't think you can say that every speaker or every moment was 100% on the money. It was thought-provoking.
Yep.
And to me, I thought that was even more important than being like, oh, I'm totally aligned with everything they say. We weren't totally aligned with everything that was said there, but we were made better by the discussion.
Yeah. You've been listening to Fish on Friday. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching.